We today have over 160,000 ethical hackers signed up. That's more white hats than there are black hats in the whole world. There are many, many more good guys than bad guys. The only thing we need to do is to get all the good guys to step up and work together on defense. And the bad guys stand no chance.
Hi, this is Sogan Bhartia, and I want to take a quick moment to thank our sponsors who make this show not only possible but also a lot of fun. Being a sponsor of this show has its own benefits, including but not limited to appearing on the show itself. So if you want to become a sponsor, please check the details we have posted below. And now let's go ahead and enjoy the show. So we are here at the Open Source Leadership Summit, and I am with Martin. But before we kind of deep dive into this interview, can you quickly introduce yourself and your company?
Happy to. Thanks for inviting me. I'm Mårten Mickos, CEO of HackerOne.
And what does HackerOne do?
HackerOne organizes bug bounty programs. We have a community of white hat hackers who will come and hack your systems to find vulnerabilities and report them to you before, so you can fix them before criminals could use them. So sometimes we joke that if you know you will get hacked anyhow, so best to get hacked by somebody you can trust. And that's what we do as a business. For the government, for the Pentagon, the US Army, the Air Force, a lot of tech companies, banks, and other companies in the world.
So it could be also like, the joke could be like, somebody's going to steal your money, so it's better just pay the tax to the government, right?
Sort of, except that when we do our job, the vulnerabilities get found and fixed, and then they can't be used anymore. So for every vulnerability we find and fix, there are fewer possibilities for criminals to break in. So we are reducing the cyber risk every step we take.
And you're here at the Open Source Leadership Summit. So what are you doing here?
Yes, I came here to the Open Source Leadership Summit to deliver a keynote on security. And specifically, I believe that we must employ much better security in open source projects and open source code. But the security, the world of software should also learn from the world of open source on how to collaborate on vital initiatives.
When you think about open source, you know, the code is out there, the development is happening everywhere. That's why sometimes people criticize proprietary code, that you cannot see the code. And often it's like considered the open source means secure. But even Jim Zemlin also mentioned Heartbleed, and he was like, I don't want to mention a lot of other projects. We have seen a lot of vulnerability in the last 2 years coming out. So open source doesn't really mean, you know, that's going to be fully secure and safe, because software development also means there will be bugs in the process. From your perspective, you do work with it, does open source really mean that it's secure?
My belief is that open source is more secure than closed source code, because you are developing it in the open and you are subject to scrutiny of everybody. And I think it has been shown scientifically to be correct. Another aspect of open source is that we are unafraid of talking about our problems. So when there is a vulnerability or a weakness in open source software, everybody will know about it. If there is something like that in closed source, it is kept secret and not fixed. And that again makes open source more secure. But of course it means that we know about all the problems in open source, so you may therefore think that there's a lot of problems. There are serious problems, but as a percentage of the total number of lines of code, I would argue that open source is much more secure than closed source code.
So what is the reason that, you know, the last 2 or 3 years, suddenly we have seen a surge of, you know, vulnerability, whether it's Heartbleed or is it because it's been used so much? I mean, Linux has always been used widely, you know, but is it because it's been used so much, or is it because people are kind of targeting it more?
Both are exactly those two reasons. One is the number of connected servers and connected devices has grown enormously in the past years. The other one is the criminals go where the attractive targets are. there's this old joke, why do you rob banks? And he says, that's where the money is. So why do criminals go online? Because that's where the sensitive systems today exist. And it will get worse before it gets better.
Can there be, within the process of software development, that you introduce some mechanism that bugs are, kind of detected, and fixed quickly without kind of...
Mankind would love to find a way to eradicate software bugs. It's not possible. There will never be code that's completely bug-free.
No, that I understand. What I'm saying is that Linux Foundation is doing like CII, they are doing some effort. The kernel community is also working on some project where, they can mitigate a lot of bugs, at the earlier stage itself.
Sure. And you should take all those precautions, all the ways of reducing the number of bugs. But you can still never get to zero. And let's be clear, many security vulnerabilities don't need a bug to happen.
That's true too. Yes.
Many times the problem is that not that the software has a bug. The problem is that the software does more than it was intended to do. And that additional functionality gives rise to a security vulnerability. So we will never run out of work here, but we can get it so close to zero that it becomes bearable. And we will. It's a matter of time, and software security will be in as good shape as airline safety is today. Maybe it takes 30 years, maybe it takes 20 years, maybe it takes 10 years, but we'll get there. HackerOne will take you there.
Yeah. Is it more of a technology problem or a culture? Because you said, just the way in airline industry, so it's not just about technology itself, also the mentality, mindset, culture, how you look at software development itself.
My view is there are no technology problems in the world. Every problem in the world is a human problem.
That's true, yes.
But it's a philosophy of mine. We could debate it.
No, I fully agree with you. And that leads to my second question, and that is that even if you find the vulnerability and fix it in the code itself, if you don't deploy it on the server and your machine, it's useless, You have patched the thingy, but if the system where it's running is not designed to keep itself updated. Sometimes there is a mentality that don't fix it if it's not broken. And there are new models like Atomic project, which is like keep themselves updated all the time. But a lot of people resist that model. So what do you have to say about that? It's also about the mindset kind of part that we have established the system. We are not going to touch it. We don't want a system that gets updated every now and then.
That would be the wrong conclusion. You are right that we must make sure that every piece of code is in good shape and gets updated, but the way to handle it is not by freezing code. It is by keeping track of the provenance of code. Where did it come from, who updated it and when, and which components are yet to be updated. And it sounds impossible to build, but it isn't. We can do that. And then we'll have a system where modules will get automatic security updates, and we'll make sure that the whole front is updated, and not like in the Equifax case where they had unpatched servers and that's where the criminals came in. We have to stop doing that. In some non-critical test world, maybe we'll there develop software just freely and not keep track of what goes where, but in a real production deployment, we will go ultimately to a model where we know where every line of code came from, and we will be able to verify that it is updated to the latest standard. And at that point, we'll be in pretty good shape.
So is there already communities working on such a model, or you think that will be an ideal model in the future?
I'm dreaming now conceptually. I know that many startups are thinking about it. I have no idea how long it will take. But when I think about this, it is so important to do that I don't really care how long it takes.
Right.
We have to do it. If we want to operate this planet with computers connected to each other, we better figure out this problem.
Right.
Doesn't matter how long it takes, or maybe it goes quickly.
And these days everything is becoming, software defined. Everything is powered by. Look around us. Everything is connected in one way or the other.
Can all get hacked. The camera can get hacked. The laptop can get hacked.
And sometimes IoT devices are becoming very, very popular. And like even a smart fridge, they're connected to the network. When we were planning to buy a fridge, and I did not go for a smart fridge because the warranty never mentioned that for how long it will get software updates. Because, because the fridge will last 15 years, but I don't want to name any company, but I contacted 2 major vendors and they never came back regarding how long it will get software update. So let's say for 2 years, they stopped sending software patch updates. It's not about the fridge will get hacked, it's connected to my network. So everything on the network will be compromised. Once somebody is in the network, it's compromised. So
this is where we need government intervention.
Yeah, exactly.
We need legislators to stipulate laws that put requirements on consumer products. If you are shipping a consumer product, you must have a way of patching the software, of receiving vulnerabilities, and you must give firm guarantees on the lifespan of support. I think that's obvious.
Regulations may or may, I mean, the current government, it says it will eliminate 2 existing regulations to create a new one. So we cannot expect anything from this government to bring in any regulations. But how much role does, public awareness versus incentives or punishment for the company to self-play in terms of, adopting practices to keep their system updated? I mean, can we really rely on, of course, for car safety, you need,
I think the problem is so central and so important that we must try every possible avenue. We must ask Congress to legislate this. We must ask businesses to do it on their own. We must ask standards bodies to standardize it. And we as consumers must demand it, and we must march in the streets and do whatever we need to do. It doesn't matter whether we'd have to do 12 different things, because it is so important for the survival of mankind.
Right.
So to me, there's no question. We will do everything we need to do to bring ourselves to a level where we can produce secure software that doesn't immediately break when somebody's poking at it.
Right. And but when we're talking about that either create punishment for the companies or incentives, when you look at software vulnerabilities, there is a $1 billion industry where people find the vulnerabilities and then they sell it, and mostly state-sponsored hackers, they buy those vulnerabilities to compromise system of their last Linux Torvalds, he made a call to hackers, that instead of attacking our system, come and help us. And HackerOne also kind of tries to do the same thing, where it incentivizes, to find the bugs and help us. How else, can, instead of hackers selling it to an adversary, they come and give it to the company?
Let me state that the gray and black market for vulnerabilities may sound like it's sort of big and scary. It's not very large. I don't know how large it is, but if it is $1 billion, that is not much money in the world. Okay. Let me also state that on HackerOne, we today have over 160,000 ethical hackers signed up. That's more white hats than there are black hats in the whole world. There are many, many more good guys than bad guys. The only thing we need to do is to get all the good guys to step up and work together on defense. And the bad guys stand no chance. The reason they stand a chance today is that we've done nothing. So we are unprepared and they are attacking us and we have no defenses. If we would defend us properly with all the resources we have, we can easily outpower them. Not easily, but we can surely outpower them.
And you said there are like certain thousands of white hackers there. Why would somebody come and join Hacker? How does it work?
Hackers join us for a number of reasons. Underlying nearly all of it is they do want to take care of society and mankind. They want to do something good for the world. Many do it for the intellectual challenge. They want to test their brain to see if they can do it, work with smart friends, get the fame of and the credit of having found something. And as they develop their skills, they will even get paid for it. So there are all these motivations, and every time we ask our hackers why they are doing it, and we give them maybe 10 different alternatives to choose from, every single hacker chooses at least 6 of them. So nobody does it for just one reason, everybody does it for multiple reasons.
And let's just switch all the gears and just talk about you for a while. You have been you have been with open source for so long, MySQL and all those things. In early days of MySQL days and all those days, open source was just new. As a journalist back in 2004, the stories focused more on telling the benefits of open source, why you should use open source.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
And now almost everybody is using open source.
Yeah.
But there is a new challenge now. They use open source, but they don't know how it works. They don't know how to engage with the community. Sometimes internally they work as a proprietary company.
Yeah.
Their own developers, they don't work with each other.
Yeah.
So looking at your own long, what do you think about this trend, and what is your message to all these companies who are?
First, I will answer a question you didn't ask, which is, because I've seen it happen in open source, going from unknown to dominating the world, I have such big trust in hacker-powered security, because I know that the same will happen in the security space. And the whole world will soon come to realize that that's the true power to use. But then to your question. So you're right. In 2001, when I joined MySQL as its CEO, people didn't believe in open source. It looked cute, but it looked like a toy. Right. We looked like a small startup. They didn't have the courage to follow us. But slowly and surely it started growing. And you're right that now so much time has passed that people take it for granted. And then you get other problems, like how do you deal with the community? The reason that gives me optimism is that even back then, we didn't know that well how to handle the community. But we had good intent and we were passionate. And if you have good intent and you're passionate and relentless, you will ultimately figure it out.
Right.
And as I said in my keynote this morning, one of the greatest benefits of open source is that it has created a model where smart people who disagree can collaborate. It's easy to collaborate if we agree, but open source collaborates even when people disagree. That is the true beauty of the model. It's not dependent on any charity. It's not dependent on altruism. It's not dependent on friendship. It's not dependent on being kind. I mean, hopefully we are kind and friends, but it's not dependent on it. It's so smartly built that even as we are yelling and screaming at each other, we can still get work done. And that power of open source is going nowhere. We just have to educate everybody. Like any civilization needs to keep educating the population on what's important. And you educate them in these things, you educate them in many others, history and languages and mathematics, and every culture chooses their own things. But we just have to do that, and the new generation will completely get it. I don't worry. When I see the young people, I never worry. I worry when I see people of my age who are sort of...
I'm actually talking about people of your age.
Yes.
Those who are running those companies and they don't understand. So you mentioned education is important. So are there any efforts, or do you think just the way back in those days media played a big role, open source media or Linux media, where they were writing articles and stories about, why open source matter? Yeah. Do you think, once again, we have to do the same thing where we talk about inner source, or, why you should change your internal culture? Because open source is not just technology you can download from GitHub, use in your project and get done.
Right.
So do you think, what does it take when you say education?
I believe in education in the broadest sense and in media in the broadest sense. Exactly. Like, if something is important to you, then talk about it. And talk about it in your blog, in your podcast, in your emails, in your interviews, in the press, in formal education, in informal education, inside a company, outside a company. But we must remember that nothing is permanent. So even if we invented open source and the business models for open source and the community models for open source and the collaborative models for open source, they don't exist on their own. They exist because we keep them alive. So we must rethink every now and then. And we're already seeing it technically with, back in 2000, everybody talked about distros, Linux distros. There was not much of an internet. The best way to get software was to buy a box with the software inside the box, and that it got distributed to you. Today, everything is online all the time. You don't download a distro, you upload your image to the cloud. Yes. So those things will force us to change the models and upgrade them. But the basic principles will not change. The basic principle of disagreeing people working together, sharing specific values, agreeing on the mission, doing what's best for the common and not best for one individual. With those principles, this will last forever.
And since, once again, going back to your long history of open source, we are kind of already there, we are going through a fourth industrial revolution. We have the software defined everything, Teslas are coming, everything is in the cloud. And what is interesting is that, most of it, almost all of it is powered by open source.
Right.
Whether Google is releasing TensorFlow or Microsoft is releasing their machine learning algorithm and frameworks and everything. So what do you think about, from 2001 all the way here? And do you really think that, the future will be powered by open source?
Of course it will. Transparency, openness, collaboration will never go out of fashion. And sure, every now and then evolution will go backwards and it will be more closed and less collaborative, and we say, what's happening? But then it's an unstoppable force. It will come back and break those models and bring back collaboration, openness, and sharing. I don't think we can change that because human beings our evolution has made us such.
Right.
And every now and then there's somebody who's so self-centric or so, I don't know what, that they drive in a different direction, and for a while they can be in power, but then we come back. We're so many, we never give up, and it is the most productive way to build and sustain a society. And that's what we're here on this planet to do.
Awesome. I mean, that was the best closing lines I can have for this interview.